Hello, welcome to another weekly podcast on Azure Centric. And as we start the last few podcasts, I have to say thank you to you that are listening, you are seeing the podcast, to our social media, because it's been tremendously on the last podcasts or last episodes that we receive a lot of good feedback, a lot of traction from the community. And before that, I'm here, and Andrew as well, humble to just thank you on that support. And again, please continuing supporting us by listening, by saying what you like, what you didn't like, and if you want to have other types of topics. We are creating these weekly news about Azure and all the enhances that Azure have from the previous podcast from last week, but we can create as other content as well, or other topics that we are doing. We are improving our way to deliver the podcast, and that's the way that I think it's benefit for all of us. We have a lot of fun doing this, right, Andrew?
Absolutely, yes. And certainly I just want to echo your thank yous. It's
Yeah,
very humbling to see such good traction in the community, and it's also very exciting,
it is.
to think so many people are listening to the Azure Weekly podcast with Azure Centric.
Yeah.
So but there was a lot of really good things kind of coming out this week. There was a lot of things
Oh my God,
we had
yes.
to trim the fat this week.
Yes, we had a lot of things. We have to say that we starting with, I think, 14 or 15, and say, but that is going to be a very long podcast. Let's trim down, and I think we have another 10 good things that we are going to talk. And let's not waste any more time, and let's move to the first one. So, as become kind of a usual on this, we start with costs, especially on we are close to Christmas, and costs now it's important for
Absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's the end of the annual budgets, but it's also the time where we're stretching budgets to give and share with others. But in our own Azure tenants, we're seeing kind of this is month 12 if your company's running January through December, and cost management is front of mind. But you're right, cost management is a regular for us
yeah,
on our little show here. And there was actually some really interesting updates. I know we actually considered cutting this one because we do talk about it almost every week.
yeah,
But let me try to be as brief as possible when talking about Azure budgets and cost management. So in here was exciting for me. 21 languages now supported in budget alerts. And why does that matter? Well, it matters because we have to remember, though we're very lucky here in North America, there's really English as a language primarily. That is not the case, especially in European and other Eastern areas. So there's a lot of mixed languages, and in one corporation, we could have, many dozens of languages that we're using. So important that Azure supports those things, and Microsoft is working hard to add all those things.
yeah,
The other one
absolutely.
is that resources and reservations. Again, continuing the theme from last week again with the changes to blade displays in Azure. It has a new look, new ways to sort those little pills for filtering up at the top. But in the update article, there was something kind of tucked away in there. There is a link to a survey to preview and provide survey feedback on those changes in the blades. So in cost management, there's a little bit of you can do a bit of a preview, and you can provide some feedback directly to the product team. Super, super critical. If you are a big user of budgets and cost management, please do take
Yeah,
5 minutes, share your feedback with the team. These improvements, also maybe a big note, all of the improvements in this week's one are noted in the article, as being feedback-based changes.
Yeah.
So the product teams really do listen to us, and it's a big part of our IT community is providing positive and constructive feedback so that good changes can come out of sharing opinions and feedback with each other. Good stuff.
Good
So
stuff.
that said, cost management labs, that one's kind of cool. So if you're not using cost management labs, use it when you want to see live features 1 week before they hit production. So you can see new features in there before they hit your production environment with cost management labs. Really fun, actually. I use it myself. Cost optimization improvements, I'm not going to list them, but there's a big stack. There's a whole bunch. App service discounts are extended for dev tests to premium SKUs and many, many more. Really, it's about how can cost management and budget, the reporting, the analytics, the AI Microsoft is applying in there, how can that help save us money in the real world? Well, I like to talk about real world usage of Azure. This is it right here. So this is how the AI tells us as regular people, hey, I noticed that you're using this product. Did you know you could save money by clicking this little button and extending a license? So there's some pretty powerful stuff in there, and it can amount to big savings at scale.
At this part, what I like about that is I've been eaten a lot of times by this, especially when you have those big workloads running on Azure, like SAP HANA, and for the first time, we are starting to see that they are using all the logic and AI attached to these costs and attached to SAP HANA. Because SAP HANA, we're talking about like ginormous VMs with 128 CPUs. I don't know how many terabytes of memory. So they are pretty costly, and they need to be certified by SAP. And that is the part that is really interesting. Is okay, now that we're starting to see a footprint of virtual machines that they are available, or that they are certified by SAP that you can run, the cost analyzer will see what you're running, what is the performance of the VM, what is doing, and recommend you to say, hey, if you're running this on a different subset of the virtual machine, you are okay. But you are saving tons of money, because those machines, they are multi-$1,000 per month, like close to $10,000 per month in certain cases. And if you can save that, like couple of even more than a couple of grand per month, it's a lot of money at the end of the year.
Well, absolutely, right. So all it takes is saving, say, $2,000 a month, and that's $24,000 a year
At the end of the year, yeah.
Exactly.
Completely.
So no matter what your currency is, that's a lot of simoleons, right? So there's all kinds of phrases there, but I'm going to try and steer clear of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Incremental backups in Azure Backup for SAP HANA. This is, I think, what kind of triggered your thinking in this one. So that is one of the improvements, and a small one-line mention, but like you said, it can represent a very large cost saving, right? So really important.
Completely.
So I see I am getting the wrap-up sign with the...
Not the wrap-up sign. We have a big agenda.
About cost management again, Andrew. So anyways...
I know that we are passionate about this, and it seems a little bit crazy that we are passionate to save money. Yes, because we are on a different world, and we want to optimize and to have the best experience for everyone, especially for our customers. That's why we are so passionate about this. But let's move on, because we have a big lineup of things, and this is one of our favorites. It's at least for me, I have to say, it's one of my favorite features of Azure. Is the one that I've been working a lot, and this is the thing that if you follow us, and again, thank you for following us, and you already saw this, I think it was on the previous podcast, that we talk about the update on Azure Site Recovery, right? All the
Yes.
new good features that they are releasing, special with the enhancement of Linux and everything else. And here it is, my friends. Rollup 52
Exactly.
is
Yep.
being released. So this means that you need to go to Azure portal to update your Azure Site Recovery. You need to update the agents. You need to update all of those things because there are a lots of tweaks that they did, a lot of enhancements that they did on a platform that will replicate across the entire footprint. Right, Andrew?
Exactly. Yeah. So as you know, one of my first kind of ventures into Azure many years ago was site recovery.
Yep.
And
I don't know why. I don't know who showed you that.
exactly. There might have been some nice young fellow that was showing me some stuff in there.
Yeah.
So, but I find it very exciting. And I've really been watching this product evolve over the last many years. And now it's this amazing large tool set. So no longer is it just really for replicating, chunks of data.
No.
It's not moving just blocks. It's moving whole environments now. It's doing assessments. There's so much rolled into this. It's such an exciting thing. So without getting into a big rabbit hole about how awesome ASR is, this big update builds on top, like you said, of the last couple of updates where they've really added way more support for Linux and Unix UIs and everything, or operating systems rather, not user interfaces, sorry. But really, this is the reflection of the major enhancements that they've been building. So they fixed all of the download links and all of the linking the pieces together. So yes, like you said, you need to push this update to all of your servers and then push it out to all of your clients. Very important to note that because there's big updates, redirects, and URL fixes.
And I think it's good to just go a little bit behind what we're talking about because a lot of times we update through the portal and we see the update and it says like update now, but then we forgot to update the agents. And then we starting to see a lot of issues on the replication and a lot of those small things that might impact the whole experience. So that's why I think it's to just reinforce when you update, you should update on the same version for everything, even from the server side, even from the provider to the agent, that you need to be on the same. If you don't update, that's okay. That functionality is not available, but at least make sure that your provider and agent they are on the same version, because then it's going to be complicated. And again, this goes through Hyper-V to VMware, goes to everything that you have it. So just push it, and you will see this go moving forward.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, there's some very large updates in there. And like you said, if you've been exposed in the world of ASR for a long time, you'll be really familiar with getting things out of sync.
Yeah.
Very easy to fall into that.
Yeah.
And
And
really,
could be different reasons, right? Could be the agents.
absolutely.
Could be the agent that they are totally, you update the provider but didn't update the agent, and now they are requesting something from the agent that is not there, or he doesn't understand. A lot of those things can happen, right?
Exactly.
And that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, as you know, I'm a big supporter of writing things down. I might be a little bit in love with OneNote, and
Just
I
a little
really
bit.
just a little bit.
Okay. No,
I'm
I
actually
just
even reading,
want to get that point noticed, because if you are just a little bit, then I don't like OneNote for sure, because when we are in the meetings, I rely on your notes that they are, oh my god, really impeccable, I have to say.
It's true. And, to be honest, as you know, we work a lot of things together. And sometimes we're not always physically together, especially these days. But OneNote really does help to close those gaps. So, sharing meeting notes, things like that, it keeps your whole team up to date.
Completely.
But with ASR, write down your procedure that you need to follow in your environments and just follow it. Keep it simple. And then, if you're sick, another administrator can step in and help you out and keep these agents and things up to date for you.
For sure.
So with that said,
moving to the next
ASR,
one.
really awesome, but there's something a little bit exciting about event hubs that's happening, I think, right?
Yes. This is one of the things that we love to talk about it is when reach the in preview mode, meaning that they already leave the development. They are on the stage that everyone can see it, everyone can play it, and it just shows that we can talk about it, because usually in develop, I have access to some of those, but because of my MVP, but all the generic people doesn't have it. And when reach these in preview means that we can now be able to talk. And this is a very simple one. It's more like on the Event Hub source. So if you are using Event Hubs, now you have the possibility of adding more data and be able to, from the data that you are ingesting, in this case, get like almost automatically the table schema on mapping all definitions and everything else. Yeah. So it's pretty simple. You defined, in this case, the source, and they are adding new features on this public preview on intelligent injection. So basically what this does, on a very simple way to explain, not to be very technical, is Event Hub looks at your data, try to grab what it is, the schema, in this case the table schema that you have, and when it's injecting, of course that you can always change this, but at least gives you a kind of a way that he sees this as your table scheme. And it just helps to just not spend a lot of times when you have different types of data, and Event Hub is really good on that you can have different types of injection of data to just proceed through the Event Hub as a source, and moving that forward, you don't need to spend too much time saying this is this, or this column refers to this is the type. So it makes more simple and faster. Of course that you can always adjust if the table schema that Event Hub, in this case, it's not seeing correctly, but at least give us a kind of a preview, or a kind of more like an automated way to do this, right? At least absolutely. I like this. Yeah. I started to play with this since they release it. They release in preview. It's not that I'm doing a lot of things on Event Hub, but I'm trying to improve a lot of things, or at least to see and to blog about it, and to get ready when I need to know this. This is very exciting times in all of
it is. Yeah, one of the things I really liked about it is using Azure Data Explorer. First of all, it is secure, and it's one of the many certified tool sets and features within Azure platform in general. Hundreds and hundreds of offerings within Azure. So this one is really cool because when you define the Event Hub as a data source, in the kind of the very brief article, they do say one click to kind of ingest the table and the mappings. So as we know, table schemas are going to change over time. Different versions of things change. Business needs to adapt. So one-click adjustment to re-ingest after a big change in your environment, and now you're set.
Completely.
But what really jumped out at me was where they say in here, the event hubs, the big data streaming platform and event ingestion service that processes millions of events per second in near real time.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And it is actually really cool. I think, we've both kind of poked at it in our own test tenants, and it's a lot of fun, actually.
It is.
It's really cool.
And if you are used to IoT, this is one of the things that you are used, that millions of events per second near real time is one of the characteristics of the Event Hub. And that's the part that I like. I have um, uh, my own Azure Sphere kits that I'm playing with a lot of this. I have playing around because I love IoT and all the things, and play with my good friends of George Maya from Crazy Tech Labs as well, learning with them a lot. And this is the part that I like about this feature. So moving on, because we still have a long list to go, and continuing on the preview ones. Now this is very cool for, in my perspective, okay, again, for two reasons. First is a new tool, let's call it this way, okay? Azure Storage Blob Inventory. So
Yes.
it goes kind of what you're saying regarding the Azure Storage Explorer, or in this case was the Data Explorer, but we have the Azure Storage Explorer that we always have, but this is inventory. So this is attaching policies, okay, into the Azure Storage. That is the coolest part. The second coolest part is this is in preview. And if you are following us on if you are seeing the video on the YouTube channel, you seeing what I'm talking about, and you almost seeing what I'm going to say. But if you are listen to the podcast, then you have to wait a little bit, a few seconds. No, okay, let's talk about it. It's only releasing in Canada and France. Wow, we are on the verge of
Both
this.
regions in Canada.
Jeez.
That was very exciting for me as a Canadian professional, and also France. I guess that's exciting too.
It's about the same, because we have the English Canadian, the French Canadian, France.
Exactly.
But I was really surprised by only releasing this on Canada, right? And it's all Canada, both regions of Canada.
Both, Central and East regions.
Central and East, and in this case, France. So no US, nothing. So, and that was really surprising. I don't know if we Canadians and French did push this because of all the policies that we are doing. I know that this is coming a lot of good things. And the part that I like about this is, and there are a few things, again, this is in preview, okay? It's about policies, it's about the all of the things that you need to do it, but there are some caveats on this. So if you are familiar with Azure policies, right? You know that you can implement the entire policy or some part of it, what's called the partial policy, because this is in preview and this is totally normal, okay? You can only implement the full policy. So partial policy, it's not available yet, okay?
Yeah,
so
because it's in preview
it's
status.
in preview status, okay? So again, and this is one of the reasons, again, we did forget to mention on the previous news, on the previous topic that we're talking about, this is preview. It's not set to production. I want to reinforce this one more time. I think it's like the cost management that we're doing every single episode. We're talking about all of this. Preview, it's not. And you can see because why. Right now, on this particular one, we cannot deploy the partial, in this case, policy. We need to deploy the full policy. So again.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then of course it does. Once you have the policy enabled, the inventory report is generated at once a day.
Yeah.
So it's a daily frequency, and it just kind of happens. But again, with your kind of emphasis on preview, I did want to add that in the release they did tell us there's no charges to use these reports in the preview period.
Yeah. But
But please pay attention.
As usual.
In the preview period, there's no charges. When it goes to production and you roll it out, this is creating data. It's creating reports. It's pulling. It's processing.
Yeah.
There will be charges for that in production. So just be aware. Preview some, caveats in there. But when it goes to production, it's life as usual. You can have all of your options and you can have all of your charges.
Completely. Moving on to the next one, and I think this is the most technical update that we will have over here, that we need to go a little bit more technical. It's about the Azure Batch vCPU quota check. This is more like, in my perspective again, and I want to hear from you, Andrew, this is more like a thing that I saw happening really during Azure Batch, that you have different types of quotas. To explain a little bit more what we're going to talk about it, we have different types of quotas on our subscriptions, okay? Mm-hmm. So we have what's called VM quotas, and we have CPU quotas. By default, depending on the subscription, of course, but generic subscriptions, they have about 20 CPUs quota. That what's called the soft quotas, okay? The soft limits. Then you have the hard limits. So if you reach that, and if you're going on those CPUs, what it means is you're starting to get errors that you reach the quota. So by sending a support request to in this case to Azure, they will increase the quota that you want. This is just a matter of to safeguard you from not doing anything wrong and starting to get huge bills. First of all,
exactly.
I see that
if
on
you
that
roll
perspective.
out 20 CPUs, that's one thing. But if you roll out 20,000 CPUs, that's going to get expensive very fast.
And if you're doing infrastructure as a code, you say, but who is doing that? Or even 200? It's just another zero that in thousands of lines of code, you can easily bypass that if you don't have a really meticulous way to do it, right?
Yeah, it just takes one logic error in your scripting and you're in trouble, it's going to cost you.
So this announcement that they are doing doesn't affect anything that you already have. This comes in December of 2020. This only will enforce what it is, the second quota, that was the VM quotas, okay? Because you have the VM series quotas, and then we have the vCPU quotas, and you have everything else. So this doesn't affect anything. It's just going to enforce those quotas. Because
and they were specific. It does say, in addition to the batch account, total dedicated vCPU quota that is currently checked within that policy that they run, right? So it's separate.
Because I see this happen one time only. I have to say, it's not like every single time. It was like they have these quotas of vCPUs that we enabled in this case through the Azure support, but then the VM series quotas that you implement were not getting there, and this is basically it's. I apologize, Microsoft and Azure, but this is more like, for me, it's more like it's not a bug. We don't like to use that one, but it's more like a feature not enabled.
Oddity. It wasn't applied in the way that we thought it would be.
Exactly. And now they are correcting that part. That's good to know. That's good to know. It's good to everyone knows. And that's why I want to bring that up. And I apologize in advance in the beginning, saying this want to be a little bit more technical and to moving that, right?
Well, it's going to be more detailed, right? So I do want to just point out the one thing that they say quite specifically in the update, that any VM series used in recent months will have its VM series vCPU quota updated to match the total account vCPU quota. So that if you're using batch processing heavily, that could impact you because it is now going to tie properly to your account vCPU quota.
Yeah.
So this change will not enable the use of more capacity. It just means that it's going to be calculated more accurately for your account vCPU total. So if you find you're hitting limits, please engage Azure support, because you can prevent this from causing limitations or challenges in your production environment as they roll this out.
Yeah, completely. So moving on to the next one, Azure Security Center. And oh my God, when I saw this coming, I was really, really happy. First of all, it's an announcement with a lot of announcements inside. That's cool. It's what's called the nested announcement.
Nexus announcements. I love it.
Nested announcement. You like that? What is this? I think it's geek, but it's yeah. So they announced that news and updates regarding November. So this is the last month. This is all the things that happen on Azure Security Center from the last month of November, and a lot of things that they are over here that they are saying is, first of all, they have all of these 29 recommendations added, okay, to Azure Security Benchmark. So Azure Security Benchmark is one of the tools that every time I use, or every time I'm creating something on Azure, I use that, because those are the benchmark. Those are the ways that I can evaluate and the score and everything that they are saying, that I see if it's kind of a guidelines for me, right?
It is, but be careful. Those 29 that were added under the November update, they do say that they're in preview. So that's important to note. We won't see those in production right away.
Yeah.
But 29 more recommendations, that's just fantastic, right?
Yeah, it is.
So the other thing that was really cool is, and I'm going to have to read out the actual name of the compliance quote here, but the NIST SP 800-171R2 has been added for regulatory compliance dashboard.
Yeah.
The translation, I think, to normal English is another NIST security requirement. So these ones are really tough to attain. They're hard to actually achieve in our environments.
And it's not only that. It shows that if you are, because this is not the only regulatory compliance.
Oh gosh, no, there's many.
There's
right?
many, and Azure Security Center. If you are, for example, on a healthcare and you need to go, if you are on healthcare business, the person that is listen, in this case, our subscriber that is listen, and you're going to the HIPAA HIT Trust, you see everything that HIPAA requires and how your environment is going against those compliances or against those things that you need to be compliant with. And this is the part that I love, because there is on the dashboard, you can see how many did you pass against those, and you need to work on those, and there are lots of benchmarks that you need to do it. So Azure Security Center, it's became number one that I'm always having at my dashboard, because something changed, a new feature come, and you probably didn't know about it, and you are out of compliance like in a minute.
Exactly. So I want to talk for a second about just Compliance Center in general. I've been using it for a long time in both Azure and 365, Security Center, and then Compliance Center as it's evolved and broken out. And I have to say, when doing an assessment with a client, it is one of the most powerful tools to show what data is in and out of compliance. Yeah. It's definitive. This again comes back to my deep love of stoplight grade systems for my customers. Red is bad and green is good. It makes it easy. It's something that they can kind of push up the chain quickly and say, hey, you know what? We are out of compliance. that's a lot of red in that spreadsheet. We better get things moving here.
Completely.
Right? So and that's one of the things that I do love about Compliance Center is it visualizes the compliance, which can, as we were saying, it can be very complex. There's a lot of rules. HIPAA itself, very complex. The new NIST requirements, very complex as well. But when you start to mesh them together in an environment, especially in Azure with so many different services and offerings that customers can use, it can be hard, especially if you don't have a dedicated desk of security experts like on it 24/7. The rest of us are left here trying to keep business compliant.
Yeah.
And it's important because it secures things like healthcare data and confidential data, things like that, sensitive data internally with the company as well.
And it's more about the processes as well, because a lot of those compliances, it's not talking about technology only, about the data only. It's talking about a little bit more about the complexity of having in this case everything connected, right? Everything, the process, for example, of accesses. Of course, that those processes will become some kind of configuration on your environment. Totally understand that part and totally get it, but it starts on the process. So usually you have people that they know inside out all of those compliances processes. We
Exactly.
as an IT architect and IT engineers, right? That we have to comply with those processes. It's what we need to do, and this is where Azure Security Center will help us, because they already have all of those person, let's go this way, right, over there. And basically what we need to do is comply with those rules, because those are the rules.
It presents it in a way that we can understand as what I think of as a regular IT professional, right?
Yeah.
So we're not a specialist when it comes to HIPAA, for example, but they use those like a HIPAA expert to build that and make sure that it applies correctly in all of their data sets across Azure. And they, Microsoft has a team that does, much work, like a lot of work to do those things, right? As we know. Yeah. But we get to consume it as kind of regular IT people, and it makes it visual and it makes it a bit easier. Yeah. Less hard is good. So the other thing on that I just want to mention is also in preview is continuous export from compliance dashboard. Why is that important? Because now you can move it into one of your own on-premises dashboards to start monitoring compliance. What? Yes, I know. I love my dashboards, but it's important because it helps us to gain more visibility and more regular visibility. So now with better visibility, continuous export, we can start building things like monitoring and alerts out of that as well. So now we can potentially, and I may poke at this, but we may be able to build something that can actually give us an email alert or a dashboard alert when we fall out of compliance beyond a certain percentage or something like that, right?
Another one that I like, and this is helping that, is the recommendation. If you are using Azure Security Center, right? You know that they have a lot of recommendations, especially if you are building net new your environment. You have a lot of recommendations. We have what's called the scorecards, right? Or the score inside of that. And usually I found difficult to say, okay, what is all the things that I need to do that Azure Security Center recommends to me? And now with the filters, all of the things that we talk about here on the podcast regarding the filtering, right? The part of the having those filterings on Azure portal now becomes available on Azure Security Center as well. So it's not only the portal. I know that this is inside of the portal, but now becomes way more simple to filter by the recommendation list that we want. Okay? And this is a very good thing about that as well. The other one is it's just a little tweaks that I found that is the system update should be installed on your machines. Now they have included as a sub recommendations, and the last one that they are talking that they have updated for the last month was the policy management update in the Azure portal that now shows the status of the default policies assignments. Those are the things that Azure Security Center, almost like a podcast only for Azure Security Center, that they did it. So probably we need to do a podcast for this, dedicated only for security. That's a very good idea.
That's not a bad idea at all. It's a very deep topic.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes, we should probably separate that one.
Completely.
So with that said, what's up after our little security update here?
After that, we have Azure Monitor for Windows Virtual Desktop in public preview.
So how friggin' exciting is this?
Oh my God.
So we've been waiting for this since virtual desktop kind of started rolling out, to be honest.
Yes.
And certainly for the last 2 or 3 quarters, I've been just waiting for this. Really exciting for me because now we're going to be able to see the utilization of resources within sessions, within the WVD environment.
Yes.
And really, it's about when we can see utilization, we can now apply cost management to it. Big tie back here. So WVD, not cheap, right?
It's not cheap. And the thing is, on this pandemic, right? If we understand how the WVD grow since they release, we are on the version 2 of WVD, right? So way better than used to be on the version 1, of course. That's why they did the version 2. Kind of redundant, but yeah. But since the pandemic started, we see a lot of organization. I see a lot of organization pushing VDI into the Azure with WVD. And they were missing this part. It's like, okay, we don't know if we can grow up or you can scale up or scale out because of that. We don't know if we're starting the sessions in one server or if we're starting the sessions in multiple servers and starting to add those sessions again on those lists again. So we didn't know about that. It was more like a guessing, and it was way more difficult to see it. It's oh my God, is like you said, one of the features that we were waiting a long time. Again, This is in preview. I don't want to reinforce. Once again, I don't want to be kind of the guy that is, this guy is so repetitive. But
you've got these rules, Marcos. I mean, come on, man. Loosen up.
Yeah. But again, the good thing about this is now we have more insight about our WVD and about the pools, about our being using, about all of those things, right? So yeah, a very excited moment for us. So please going to check it out. That moving forward with news is, again, Microsoft is getting on the Magic Quadrant of the Gartner 2020. In this case, for cloud DBMS platforms. So cloud databases, Microsoft databases. And
database management system platforms. Exactly. So, here we see once again Microsoft nailing dead center in the leading quadrant with Gartner. I mean, these just keep coming out, and Microsoft is really leading. And we can see that, Microsoft is really putting a lot of work into staying at the forefront of this, right?
Yeah.
So in the article, Gartner talks about how Microsoft Azure, specifically DBMS, they have a strong data ecosystem with SQL Server, and Azure has moved well into big data services like Azure Synapse Analytics, and it's combining the best of storage and analytics worlds. So, we have all of these things, very popular services, Data Lake. We talked about Azure Data Explorer, Event Hubs, all of these little components, all of these components coming together really is what makes up parts of this decision. But it's not only the fact that they are there, that they run really well, it's that they can scale too, and that they're well supported. So Azure support, I don't know how Microsoft scales their support team. That's maybe a topic to talk about another day. But boy, you email or even phone to Azure support, and they do a really good job. You get the right person at the right time, and they really help you. I just wanted to kind of mention that. I know it's not necessarily related, but I think it's part of the full ecosystem. And when I see the word ecosystem, I always think of like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So this is really a big reflection of how more and more companies are using Azure as well for their big data. A lot of the bigger services that Azure is pushing forward is also helping them to stay as a leader in this quadrant. Yeah.
And the article mentioned that the 25 years of the SQL Server and the adoption of the SQL as one is really leveraging, and we're starting to see Microsoft with the big players of database management like AWS, like Oracle, that basically born only with dedicated database and is one of the biggest database players. SAP with SAP HANA as well. It's more like for them, IBM and all of those clouds that we're starting to see leveraging. AWS is leading on all of this, at least on the part to execute and regarding vision as well. Microsoft is really tight with all of those big players, and it's like you said, it's the way that they are seeing all of this, since a database, all the services, all the PaaS services, all the SaaS services that they are doing, the big data, all of those announcements. And even that, if you were following the announcements that, for example, Satya Nadella did this week regarding the data and analysis event, it was enlightening to this. We know that this is a very topic that Satya is passionate about, this data analysis, big data, AI, machine learning. It's one of the things that we saw Microsoft growing tremendously, especially with this new leadership of Satya Nadella. And we're starting to see this on Magic Quadrant. If you follow all of this technology, you're seeing that Microsoft is really pushing forward. It's not more on those kind of a catch-up game. It's leading. It's with them, the big players leading technology and leading the innovation and leading everything, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about Azure, but I agree. A little bit of a mention here. Definitely AWS services, probably Lambda and things like that, leading in that area. And multi-cloud is a real thing, and it's important for many companies and organizations, right?
Yeah.
So Azure right in there with AWS and all those leaders in that market. You can really see a big market focus on big data and analytics.
And I think that is a very good segue for the next one that we want to bring it up. That is shape your future with data and analytics. This is from the Julie White, that is the corporate vice president for Microsoft Azure. So talking about, this is what we've been talking about so far regarding the Magic Quadrant, right? And this is like the person that is responsible for Azure inside of Microsoft, that directly reports to Satya, and she's saying exactly the same thing that we are doing on this blog post on Azure Block, right? Saying that they are achieving that. The core of this is what we've been talking about with Azure Synapses Analysis. It was a
Exactly.
tool that they created to just leverage the lack of tools that they were doing in all of that, the limitless analytics service that they are bringing together, and it's a very nice way that she's writing to just kind of give us the vision of that. It was a really good setup that they released the Magic Quadrant. They released this on the same day that Satya was doing the event, and give us a little bit of more comfort on how Microsoft is going forward with this DBMS, the database management system that they have
Right.
regarding
Yeah.
Azure and what is coming in the future.
Exactly. So Julia's article, she's talking about getting rid of knowledge silos, something you and I have been, fighting in the industry for what, like 10 years or something
Yeah.
now. And, she talks about using a comprehensive data governance strategy. And that's very important. So one of the products that they talk about, and it's a bit of a tongue twister for me, so you'll have to bear with me. In preview is Azure Purview. so, so Azure Purview
In preview.
in preview, I know, right? So it's a unified data governance service that helps with complete understanding of data. So, you talk about having big data in the organization. This is big data, kind of the governance layer that runs on top of your big data, right? So Purview can help you track all of your data across the organization, gives you the lineage of the data so you can track where it came from and where it's lived throughout its lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Then you can create the business glossary of wherever it's stored. So whether that's on premises, multi-cloud, SaaS applications, and Power BI.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things, I don't want to dominate this topic, so just jump in if you want, but it does use over 100 AI data classifiers to help understand data exposures, and it looks for sensitive data, personally identifiable information, the PII, and it helps to pinpoint data that's out of compliance. So
Yeah.
again, a big focus on, yes, you have big data. How do you manage it? How do you know when you're following the rules? Because we're talking about petabytes of data here. We're not talking about a couple gigs. We're talking about petabytes of data. And, Purview can really help you, especially as IoT has this exponential growth. You talk about building out analytics on everything using Synapse and Data Explorer, all these really cool service offerings from Azure to help you manage and get knowledge and power out of your data, while you also have to keep your data in compliance. And that can be difficult. So I think to close out my big kind of excitement on data governance and management is the Purview tool is integrated with Microsoft Information Protection. And I thought it was really awesome. She talks about how you can use the sensitivity labels in 365 Compliance Center to help apply the AI, like the different triggers to analyze your data. And I thought that was actually really cool. So again, as you know, my head in the clouds is a Microsoft cloud, and it's kind of living between 365 and Azure. And I do a lot of identity stuff this last few quarters. It's just where we're at in the world with the whole pandemic and everything. Identity, security, and management really important. And I'm honored that I get to help a few customers with that. But managing data and applying all of these AI rules to it so that we know more. And the thing I love about AI is it's impartial. It's not up to me. I'm just a soft, squishy human. and I maybe more squishy than I'd like. But that's
This is against the PII. This is too much information that we don't need to know.
Well, where I was going was the AI doesn't weigh in with all of these other things that the human brain automatically includes in our decision making, right?
Yeah.
So the AI removes the emotional components and the historical components and applies a rule with a true false value.
Exactly.
So it gives us an impartial way to measure and an accurate way to measure if data is in compliance with a rule or not.
Yeah.
And, nonetheless, so Synapse and Purview working together in preview to empower organizations to invent with purpose and understand data at a deep and useful level.
Okay.
So with all of that said, yes, we are actually really excited about this one.
Yes.
Because it's a big deal, right?
It is, and it just shows what they are going, and that's why they are one of the leaders on the Magic Quadrant. Okay.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the next one, and this is really cool, especially for IoT and IoT world and for the infrastructure as well. The IoT Hub private link now it's became available as a general availability, and this is again to not being repetitive again, but basically the private links how it works is even if you have for example the servicebus.windows.net that is a DNS outside. When you achieving that, you're going to the inside of your network. You are not going to the outside. So the data transfer or the data transport is secure because it goes inside of your VPN, whatever it is, that you are only available inside of your Azure. So only if you're reaching from your connection, private connection, that you will do it. But one of the things that I like about this, it's saying that, and it's specifically saying that existing private links are not updated. Means that if you are using this private link that was in preview until they make general available, you need to redeploy it.
Yep.
So
and what is that a function of, Marcos? Is this have something to do with features being in preview?
Probably. It's something that we already repeat like only on this podcast like what, 4 times?
Yeah, but it's important that I think a lot of our listeners, if they've been kind of following us for a while on our various endeavors, they understand because we really do kind of talk about this often, but newer listeners may not be aware. So there's all these little intricacies, and that is part. I think it's cool, to be honest, because for me, it's something I kind of learned maybe from you a bit. Is this is one of those things. There's some depth to it, right?
Yes,
so
it is.
One feature is not the same as another feature, and when we move from preview to production, it's a different set of virtual features and infrastructure and the manifestation of the code, right?
Yeah.
So it has different SIDs in the back end, different ways of managing it. And when the Azure teams are moving from preview to production, it's not always just a straight cut. So, long ago they did make it clear, kind of if you read the rules with using preview, yes, I know somebody actually has to read through that little user agreement when you just click on, sure, let me play with the fun thing. It does actually say, hey, these features aren't going to carry forward. You're going to have to nuke this and redeploy it in your production environment.
Yeah.
So, I know, lengthy, but important to note. So there's different facets of it, right?
So moving forward to the last but not the least, okay, we have this Azure IRAP that is access for 7 additional service granted to a level of protected. So first question, I use this big word IRAP. So what is Azure IRAP, Andrew.
So exactly. So we figured if we have to look it up, chances are you may as well as a listener or watcher.
Exactly.
So IRAP is Information Security Registered Assessor Program.
Okay.
Yep, I think it sounds way better as IRAP.
Exactly.
So really, what it is it's an assessment program that looks at different components, and of course, there's lots, but IRAP is one of the kind of rule sets or frameworks used to help with security assessments.
Yeah.
So I referenced a Microsoft Docs article from kind of fall of I think it was October of 2019. And at that time, they talked about approaching 200 Azure offerings that were assessed using IRAP. I could not find pre-publication of our article. I couldn't find an update on that for fall of 2020, but I thought it was actually really cool because it's another way that Azure and Microsoft is using to assess security. And that's important because it's part of the certifications for products and services for the Microsoft Service Trust portal.
Exactly.
And this all ties into those security assessments and rankings, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important to just mention one thing, going back probably one step. I know that we are reaching the end of the podcast to just talk about this, but this is really important because this is the way that, for example, on this announcement, they say that they made these 7 new services granted as a level of protect. So it means that in this case, that was built for the Australian government information security manual. So they built all of these 7 services that now it's protected. So it means that they are going against all of those certifications that IRAP is doing, right? All of these security manual that they are assessed, that they are compliance with this. So it's more service that we are secure that all of the requirements regarding that they have, for example, that they have regarding the security and all of that, they are compliant. So we have 7 more. In this case, we're talking about the Azure Advanced Threat Protection, Azure Bastion, and we had the podcast only talking about this, Azure Bastion. It's one of the things that I'm using a lot of times. Azure Data Explorer, we already talked about this on this podcast.
Yeah, and now we know it's IRAP certified.
Exactly. And NetApp files. Azure Sentinel comes to the Azure Security, the SIEM technology, Data Factory, and WVD. Look at this.
Windows Virtual Desktop. How about that? It is IRAP security certified. And that's actually really, I just want to kind of beat that one for a minute. So virtual desktop, really important technology, especially during these difficult times. And one of the things that I noticed for the last maybe 3 years, organizations have done this weird thing in some cases where they're putting their virtualization of desktops on-prem, but they're putting a lot of data in cloud.
Yeah.
Why? People, please have one or more architects come in and get more than one opinion. That's always a really good thing. And, just sort out things about data access and localizing things. I'm sure there's many cases where, it may be required for different rules, but B, maybe they have something, on-prem data requirements that they use in a critical way, so they need their virtualization on-prem to match it. There's lots of different scenarios out there, but I'm not a big fan of the trend.
And what I like about this especially is this is coming from, as we mentioned, from the Australian government. But because of that, now that protected service is available to everyone, because it's a global service that is protected to everyone. This is not certified only for the Australian government. The Australian government requests this. Azure went, in this case, or Microsoft went to see how they were using, or if they could using those services. But for example, the Canadian government could see this and could be using this service because now they are IRAP protected, or they are all
Absolutely.
right. IRAP, it's a very big word. IRAP assessed, and now they have the stamp that is protected, and they can use it as a government entity.
Yeah,
Probably
it's
on their Azure government, that they are totally separated from the other ones, but they can still use that because that's a good thing, and that's the part that I like about Azure is leading on that part, right? If you
absolutely,
seeing
yeah,
the trust portal, right?
yeah.
You seeing the certificates that you have, it's insane.
Oh,
Um,
it is. There's so many certifications in there, and it's important. So we talk about a lot of things very frequently, and certainly security is in the top five. It's absolutely one of the things that is just, it has to be native to your design, to your architecture, but also just the way you're thinking about using or consuming products and services.
okay.
So, as IT professionals, we do have a responsibility to not only our customers, but also the community to just think about security. And, if we can make one minor improvement and make things a bit more secure, a bit better, then absolutely take the 5 minutes and check the box and save those settings and do it.
Absolutely.
It's worth it. It
It is.
helps overall, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah. So we come to end of our podcast. Unfortunately,
we made it.
we made it. We made it all of this. I think it's one of the longest, but that's okay. I think a lot of good information it is. So I want to thank you, Andrew, once again for being part of this podcast. I'm really enjoying it, and it starts to be our highlight of the weekend. At least when we recording this, we are excited to just say, "Whoa, what are you going to talk about it?" and everything else. And thanks, of course, you, our subscriber that they are viewing
Mhm.
this podcast or listen this podcast on the different platforms. We are growing, and that's thanks to you in this case.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So again, help us out to just grow even and reach even more people. Just subscribe to our channels, even if you are listening to our podcast or viewing through the YouTube channel. Just subscribe, just give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you don't like it. So please be true. We want to see
Yeah, we
how
want to
we
hear the
can
feedback, right?
improve, right?
Yeah, and I would say maybe go ahead, be honest, thumbs up or thumbs down, but leave us a comment, or
Yeah.
hit our website or LinkedIn or something and send us a message, and let us know what we can do to improve, what you'd like to see more of or less of,
Yeah.
and we take all of the feedback to heart. We do listen, and we're here because of you. And if you made it this far in the podcast, kudos. Thank you for listening.
Exactly. Thank you so much once again, and see you next week. Bye.